get out early. I'd like to,
I don't agree with that.
I'd like to get started on the discussion, more or less informally. And we would like to address any opinions that you folks have regarding the charter. But specifically, we were looking at service areas.
Never missed it.
And of course,
She can't go.
is simply your Article 9, service areas, education, and the Assembly on Article 2. Any other areas that you, now when I give these articles, I'm talking about the 1971 charter that was out, and we're trying to work from it as a guide. We're very much interested in any input that any of you have.
Frank, are you also looking at the Gino Douglas charter by
Yes,
reference?
we have, well, our office is just really getting set up right now. And we do
Even
that.
the one that failed in Fairbanks, resoundingly.
Well, I think it's been kind of interesting. Everything
There's
I've
also a charter, the Sitka charter, that seems to be working fairly well.
which is the shortest?
As well as the Model City Charter.
I haven't seen six. Is that short?
Well, there are all these that we're working from are relatively short as far as shortness. And I believe in shortness if you cover the ground.
Yeah, right.
I don't care if it takes 10 pages, it takes that to cover the ground. We're going to do what we have to do. We would like, basically, as far as the Charter Commission has expressed itself as wanting to provide a framework that will allow the legislative body to legislate and still provide constraints and provide limits here and there. And we want it to be a simple charter.
Have you gotten into the points of centralized offices? I can think of one example, the attorney's offices, rather than being legal department for the school board and the legal department for the new government, to centralize both into one and have all factions use the same legal facilities. That's a duplication of cost that I see between school board and borough.
Well, of course, that's a step in the other direction. It used to be that way, and then they got state authority to have their own attorney, and then they were to have an attorney, and we allowed it in the budget, as I recall, as checking that, and it was going to be a half-time attorney, and they were going to use our law office, our law library, and it's gotten so it has to be a full-time attorney. I can see that. But they're also developing their own law library. And I think this is the problem. It was supposed to be that way, and I don't know how you can control that. They feel they need the services of an attorney right there, and I can see probably what they're doing all the time.
Now, is that something you mentioned? Is it provided by law that they can have an
I
attorney?
think that someplace in Title 29, they gave them the authority to hire an attorney.
But the borough right now still has to budget the item.
If you go to a charter, local government
Yeah.
can supersede any state, regulation.
Not any. There's areas.
Not all.
No, any, but some. But if they give an option, they're not given the authority to have it, they give an option to allow it.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to have us take turns perhaps in laying out some thoughts here?
That would be good.
I think that's good.
Why don't we follow the procedure of each party giving us their input and then discussing discussion.
Well,
Ben?
I've got some thoughts on this, and I welcome the opportunity to have a chance to talk on them. I should have been at some of the public hearings, but I was out of town in each one, and I haven't been able to appear at the public hearings. I'm personally a professional in the field of local government. I have been a city manager for 17 years, and I also at the present time function in both the current local governments and get an opportunity to get some insight into how they operate and how they don't operate. I'd like to say, first of all, that I think that you got to guard against building impotence into this thing. I think that you can try to meet and satisfy the fears of everybody to the point where you build so-called safeguards against the government into the charter in such a way that you're going to hogtie it and you can't do anything. What you've got here is essentially an opportunity to unify two governments, one of which is a weak local political subdivision and a strong one. The strong one being the city in terms of its municipal powers. The weak one being the borough in terms of its municipal powers. Of course, the borough is a government that's a limited governmental form. It can only do those things that it is specifically authorized to do. The first recommendation I would have is that your unified government be authorized to do anything not prohibited by the state. I think that's probably basic and the foundation of what you've got to have. You can have that in one sentence, and that in itself will set up a government which is a strong local government structure. The next thing that you need to deal with is the character of the structure itself. What form it's going to take, so-called form of government, that is, whether it's going to be so-called mayor council or council manager. And to conclude there as to what you're saying is that when you say council manager government, that means that you're setting up the legislative body as the dominant policy creating body with direction and control of the government. In other words, the policy-making body, that being the assembly, if that's what you call it, would have control of the administration. The administration would be answerable to that legislative body. Under the other form, of course, what you have is essentially a mayor that is independent and is the executive, and the administration is responsible to him. Therefore, you have a legislative body making policy, but unable to enforce the implementation of that policy. Basically, that's what you have in the borough at the present time. This is the assembly can make policy, but the policy is carried out if the mayor decides to carry it out. If he agrees. If he doesn't agree, then he has the upper hand, and he can basically prevent or not carry out, not accomplish, or not comply with the orders and directives of the assembly. That means you have two heads of the borough. And in fact, when John Asplin was here, it was very obvious that you had two boroughs. You had one borough being representing the mayor and his staff in Juneau, and in some cases you had the assembly having their representatives down there arguing the opposite side of the same question, which, that's pretty stupid. In the first place, you have the mayor, you have the borough divided into assembly school districts, and they frequently present different viewpoints to the state. And then if you have the borough itself divided so that the assembly mayor leaderships present different viewpoints to the state, this does nothing except make the entire local government here totally impotent in its dealings with the state. I think that there are strong arguments for the council manager plan because I believe that it's more democratic and responsive to the will of the people, because your legislative body is certainly more responsive to public desires than the mayor is, and they can then make their decision and have that decision carried out. So, you know, I professionally, I am oriented toward the council manager plan of government, and I believe that it's a smoother working, more directly controllable, and more responsive governmental form. So, regardless of how you come out, I take the same attitude other people do, and that is, that's not the most important thing you do. If you feel that in order to get the charter passed, you've got to have the mayor council form, that's a workable form. You know, I don't think it's as good, but I certainly would vote for the charter myself, even if that's the way it is. I'm just talking my preference, that's all. But the most important thing is to make sure that this government is strong and can function and can operate. As far as the service districts is concerned, I really don't think that that's all that important either. It's probably important to the people that are in the outlying areas, and they want to have the right to decide what services and what taxes. I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, that you can still have a strong government and have that provision built in.
Do you believe, I mean, the extension of powers could be controlled
By referendum?
referendum?
Certainly, there's no problem there. I think that's probably a heavy sales point for those people.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Ben a question? Ben, one thing, and it is going to be the biggest thing, will be the question of the form. And is there some reason, just in what you know nationally, can a mayor, legislative body that are separated, a strong mayor, that has an administrative assistant or someone that comes in somewhat like a manager, do you feel, get the same kinds of people to qualify for a job working under a mayor who is the chief executive as you would get, say, where the legislative body directly hires them? Is there a difference?
Yes, I think so. The whole field of public management has a professional status, and there are career people who are trained and educated in that field, experienced in that field. And there really isn't that much difference between persons serving as professional city managers and persons serving as what they call
Staff director?
chief administrative officers. They don't call them staff directors. That's an invented term that somebody invented here in order to make believe that it was the chief administrative officer. It's John Aspen's idea again. Now, Mayor Roderick proposes that we name him Chief Administrative Officer, which is actually what he is. He has control and direction of the administrative organization and manages it for the mayor. He's answerable to the mayor. The only difficulty with it is in the form of government. It's in the form. You know, the guy can be just as competent, probably is, has the same professional background that any other manager would have. The problem is in the form. He answers to the mayor. He does not answer to the assembly. And therefore, if the assembly says do something or give us a report, the mayor says don't give them the report or don't do it. That's it. You know, the assembly is completely helpless to do anything about it. Now, people like me get down the next night and have a meeting down at the city council meeting. At the end of the meeting, everybody has a suggestion that they want something. It's back there at the next meeting without fail. And it's done.
One other question, and what about, it was provided for in the last charter, and of course they had the separation of powers. What about staff being provided for the legislative body if it's separate from the executive?
Well, you can do that, but you're compounding a problem.
What it seems like to me.
Then you have two staffs to worry about, and then the two staffs. And nobody knows what the hell is going on. I think it's very unfortunate to do that.
What about the attorney?
You mean about having two attorneys? One?
Well, I'm thinking at least say, would you say the executive or the legislative body should be able to confirm the
Well, at
attorney?
least, I think at least that should be done, but that again doesn't really accomplish what you want, because the attorney still does not feel that he's responsible to the assembly primarily. He really doesn't feel that the assembly is going to get rid of him if he doesn't.
You see something that would accomplish it?
Yes, I'm sure. The only way to do it is to have the assembly be the authority in the government. Council manager forum, in other words.
Then, in that respect, I think one of the fears that lots of people express is the fact that if you have take a long manager, it takes so many years to get rid of it, rather than an elective process when you... Now, there was some talk you had once, which I think people have heard you, they think is a good idea, by electing the assemblyman, no, at the same time, but, run for office, so the manager could become an issue, in the sense of an election campaign. Could you, I know you tried that in some other place, I think it has some merit.
Yeah, the individual manager can become a political issue, or the manager forum can become a political issue as to whether it should be changed. In many cases, if the manager has succeeded in alienating a portion of the public by what he does or doesn't do, the way he runs the organization, then sooner or later somebody will start to run on the issue that he's going to vote to get rid of the manager. That makes that particular manager's tenure an issue in the election. And
They feel that if it's only around two people at a time, the manager can always have enough support to remain...
no,
and
that's not right. What he does, a manager may operate along with say a 9-man city council, and 3 of them don't like him and 6 of them do. He's all right. And then maybe you get an election and the 3 of them, normally what we have in the city, 3 of them run every year. What if you got 3 people that were opposed to that particular manager? He's got to start looking for another job. If you get one guy that's really dead set against it, and he over a period of time successfully persuades another member of the council and then another member and whatever, pretty soon the guy does not have the support of the council anymore. As soon as he doesn't have the support of the council, then he's figuratively out. He's got to either find another job or else they'll ask him to leave. And it doesn't take that long.
Harmless?
No, that's fine. I
Lisa?
appreciate the comment.
The same thing applies to attorneys. The attorney in the city is hired by and responsible to the city council.
Lisa had a question, I think.
Ben, what if in the council manager form, you say that they're more responsible to the people, but what if they are responsible to the people? They come and they say,
What do you mean, they?
the council,
The council is elected. The council is elected on a rotating basis. Every year you have members that are elected in the council. Those elections signal on a continuing basis the response to the public of the council. You follow what I mean? You got 3 incumbents that are up, and there are 3 guys that come up against that run against them, or a number of other people that run against them on the grounds that they're not doing a good job, that they're passing laws, ordinances that are not in the best interest of the people, and they get elected. Then that says something. The council is and so is the assembly now, I think, on a rotating basis. So the legislative body has to be the most responsive group that you have.
with the council manager form, how would you set up your district?
Oh, election.
Your service districts?
No,
Election
election.
Oh, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can, I really could care less about whether you've got 11 districts with 1 representative each, or you've got at-large representation, or what. That's only a method of electing the legislative body. That's, you set that up in such a way that you believe that it will become the most responsive to to the community as a whole and to the ethnic groups in the community, if you've got that, or to the service area groups, you know, if you want to try to give voice to certain kinds of settlements in the community, like the hillside and the Eagle River and so forth, or what have you. It's only a method of representation of the legislative body. But the legislative body has got to become a cohesive unit sitting around a table and creating policy.
Has the city council ever created policy?
Has it ever created policy? Sure.
I've never seen it sit down and just say, we're going to sit down now and create policy.
That's not the process.
I know it is. That's what really kind of bothers me.
The process
To me, that they create policy maybe when they pass the budget, and the rest of it sort of ad hoc policy.
You create policy when you pass the budget, when you pass the capital improvement program, you decide where the emphasis is going to go, whether it's open space, lands, bike paths, something else. You create policy when you deal with the administration and ask for feedback on information. You create policy in
By bill, ordinance.
on your ordinances and your recommendations that come to the body.
Do you think it's a good idea for them to sit down and say, now we're going to just talk about policy?
We do that occasionally, sure. Our city council does that. Sit down and, well, we had such a meeting the other night when we sat down and decided as a body how we felt about the proposed CBD plan. That was the last time I remember. That was only 2 weeks ago.
Well, the public request is a relationship that the parties have. You know, like a mayor makes it a policy if he's a good mayor. You have a county executive. If it's not going to get up in policy. The same thing with elected officials. No, the thing is both have pro and con, and the board relationship with the people that they are functioning. If you have a good manager, it's a fantastic system. If you have lousy managers, it's a lousy system. The same thing with an elected strong mayor. If you have an excellent person, there's much more communication with the other elected officials. If you have a more dictator type, you have no communication at all. So what we are doing, we are trying to outgas the people in position which, you know, and making sure they function, but they're going to function in relationship to their commitment.
I agree with Lydia.
And then they both have good and bad.
Any system will work,
Relationship.
you know, with the right people, and any system will not work with the wrong people. So you
So
can
the
start
other
with
one
that.
we do is just have that question.
Sheriff of the Assistant President Holmes had a question.
That is the point.
Sherry?
So you have to look at that.
What I have heard from the people at the public hearings is that the at-large representation is not going to be acceptable to them. They want either single-member districts or, as a compromise, multi-member districts. The fear that I have, if you have the council manager form and your council members are elected from districts, be they multi-member or single-member, you don't really, I don't see, have anyone who necessarily has the interests of the whole community at heart. My fear is that you will have too many sectionalized, regionalized interests expressed. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. I agree with you that district representation tends to increase the problem of sectionalism. I think you can see it on our assembly even today. But that really is a separate issue from council manager government. There are many council manager governments in the United States that have district representation. It's really two separate questions. The problem of sectionalism would exist regardless, whether you have the council manager plan or the mayor council plan.
Except that with the mayor council plan, the mayor is elected at large, and I see that he could be the focal point for the area-wide interest.
He's the only guy that gets elected by everybody.
Right.
It's a good point.
I sort of see that we have to, even though the district representation is not a major issue, I think it has to function as a unit with the form that we select.
You can probably minimize the sectionalism problem by going to the multi-unit districts, which certainly I advocated that when that choice was before the assembly.
Multi-member?
Ben, you mean by having larger districts, therefore including more?
Right.
I think that tends to minimize it.
In the first place, you got 3 people from a larger district, and those 3 people rotate so that each year one of them comes up for re-election. That keeps the signals coming from the district as to what they want, for one thing. And secondly, the district gets large enough so that it's not so localized and so provincial. You get a better base, better elected base.
What do you think, Ben, on the designated seats in a multi-member district?
I think they should be designated only in the first election where you have different terms. But after that, all the terms are the same length, and I don't think they should be designated. I think you should have everybody voting.
I'd like to hear from George.
Are there other questions of Ben? How about you, George?
Well, I agree with Ben. I think there are basically just these 2 or 3 really big issues that we're going to face. I think the rest of the things can solve after beautification if it comes. I'm in favor of the multi-member districts. I think that that's a good compromise. If I would solve it either way, I think that I would maybe mix in a couple at large. There's no reason why you really couldn't do that. But certainly if you got single-member districts, I think you could get down to too much log rolling. And second, that's trading off, you know.
Log rolling is trading off.
You know,
How they don't speak to each other, George?
well, you know, this is the problem that I was coming up to in the council manager form of government. You know, it's really perplexing to try to work out what's best in that regard.
True.
One of the things is you've got 2 problems, I think, with the council manager form of government. One, I think, is that if you get a council that's made up of, say, three factions, then you never really do form policy. That they never can agree, and so you're just sort of floating and arguing, and you're never going anywhere. Because you never can form a working majority, which is always a problem, I think, with the legislative body. The other problem, particularly when you don't have any party coalition to try to put it together. The other problem, I think, which may be more dangerous, is the fact that you may get a working majority, and I don't think there's anything more dangerous than a runaway legislative body when they get moving. And if they should happen to really get moving, you don't, in the mayor or in the council manager form of government, you don't have any mayor's veto. You don't have any counterbalance there.
How about a runaway mayor that vetoes everything?
There are always dangers like that. But the problem is you don't have counterbalance. Somehow you should reach some equipoise in power. All I can see is what Ben says, when it works well, can be very effective. But you can get, I think you can get a lot of bickering as to whether the person is acting rightly or wrongly. I just want to point those things out on the other side. Although I tend to agree with Ben that it's a good thing. One of the other things you get down to now is the problem the Borough Assembly has is one of the part-time assembly. And, of course, I'm not sure that you should address yourself to 4 part-time people in the charter. I think that this is something that should be taken care of afterwards. But I think it's something you should consider when you're choosing a form of government. In the council form with part-time councilmen, and in the assembly form with part-time assemblymen, you never have one, if you're using a manager form with it, you never have one elected official that's there full-time in your government, which has always really sort of bothered me. It seems to me that,
What are you saying, George?
well, I'm saying that in the city now, you do have
The mayor.
Sullivan. You have Mayor Sullivan, who's a part of the council and who can report back and say, you know, I've been here all week and I've been able to go around and see these departments and talk to this and I've seen this happen. But otherwise, you're just at the mercy of staff. And staff, on the other hand, can bureaucrats have to be just as dictatorial if they get the upper hand as anyone else. They're the ones that feed you the facts, George. And they're very selective. They can be very selective in the facts they feed you. I know I used to feed facts.
So you're saying that maybe if you have mayor, manager, have a full-time mayor who's voting?
The Sullivan thing isn't actually too bad.
George, I think you put that very well. I was saying the same thing in another way. The quality of the decisions made by the legislative body depend upon the quality of information that it gets. And the point that I was making is that it's a question of whether it's the legislative body staff that's giving it the information or somebody else's staff that is giving it whatever information they see fit. But at least if they have control of the staff, they can change it if they don't, if it eventually dawns on them that they're not getting all the information and they're not getting the right information, they've got the power to change things. The assembly doesn't. Under the other arrangement, they have no control over that staff.
Well, they can put a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah, but yeah, they can put a lot of pressure on it.
Well, this is a constant problem you're trying to solve in government, just to solve, just to reach efficiency at perhaps the cost of dictatorship.
I have to think
that dictatorship is,
I happen to think that there's
dictatorship is the best, but how to keep it benevolent.
I happen to think that there's a member of the attorney staff in the borough that ought to be fired, but I can't think of any way that I could bring that about. If he was in the city, I could think of a way that I could bring it about.
Well, I think you could call an executive session and discuss it.
What if the assembly decided to agree with me? It still couldn't do it.
I think that a cooperative mayor can.
Mr. Chairman, question.
Maybe you've gotten to the point that we've lost our cooperation.
Mr. Chairman, question either of George or possibly Ben to respond. Are there areas where your executive and your legislative, if they're separate, can work in harmony, or do they provide the basic conflict that a manageable conflict, let's say. People say you need conflict in government, and there are those who feel that we should have the city and the borough knocking heads. But can that be a healthy thing, to have, say, your executive and your legislative really working at one another and yet in a manageable form? Is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, I think you can look at national history. When you get too much conflict between the president and Congress, you get nothing done.
But on local government, how does that work? Is that
I'm not
healthy?
sure it's that much different in that respect between the legislative body and the executive body. If you get conflict, you're just not going to go anywhere. On the other hand, you don't want one to dominate the other. You don't want the president to dominate you don't want the executive to dominate the legislative body. You don't want the legislative body to dominate the other. It's a constant striving toward cooperation without becoming oppressive.
Is that good?
Oh, sure it is. To do that, if you can, but history shows that you only do it for very short periods.
You're saying an adversary, you deliberately set up an adversary situation?
This has been suggested, and I'm really just throwing it to you to see if that has
I'm not sure you call it checks and balance situation, adversary situation. It can develop into a cooperative situation, it can be adversary. It depends upon what's happening in the history of the time.
And again, it depends on the people.
And the people involved, that's right.
What I'm hearing is enough pros and cons from at least two of you, so that I'm still right back where I was before. What do you think the community will accept? I mean, what's your feel? You talk with constituents.
I don't think that the community thinks that deeply about it.
I'll tell you what I think they'll accept. I don't think they'll accept a government that's based on weakness. I think that you've got a strong government and a weak government, and I don't think you can unify them on the basis of weakness. You've got to unify them on the basis of the strength. Otherwise, I don't believe you'll get acceptance. I think that you can set up your representation on with possibly a range of possibilities that would be acceptable. I think you've got to provide for service district extension of powers. I don't think there's any way out of that, and that's no real problem. And lastly, I think you've got a choice between the basic forms, council managers, executive assembly, and my feeling is that you ought to go with the council manager form because I think it's more workable and more responsive. I don't know. I can't tell you.
You have no feel as to community sentiment on it.
Well, I have a feel as community sentiment, but I think that it's probably tinged by my own prejudice.
Ms. Parker added with.
And what can we suggest for Anchorage in the future? Does the council manager form work better under a small group of people, or does it work as well as with a larger population? You know, as Anchorage grows, what's going to be best back then?
The council manager form has an excellent record in the United States. It's the fastest growing form of municipal government, and I think it's by far the most efficient and most responsive, and it has proven itself
In larger cities as well as small.
in all sizes of cities.
And Anchorage continues to do whatever it's doing.
Yeah, Anchorage, at 160,000 people, Anchorage is an average sized city. You know, it falls right pretty close in the middle of all city sizes. They generally classify cities 500,000 and over, 100,000 to 500,000, 50,000 to 100,000, 50,000 and under.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like just to keep it moving to hear maybe from some of the other people.
Well, I basically have some problem with the council manager form of government. Number one, of course, it doesn't lend itself to what I consider a true democratic form of government because there's no separation of powers. But it still can work. If you have a council manager form of government and then have one man per section, it won't work, I don't believe. You need someone elected at large. You need a mayor, or someone that the people can equate to. I would also, my preference is all council members running at large, but I have a feel of the public, and that's not what the public wants. And as Arliss pointed out, when there's just the three of us were here, it would probably kill the charter. If you do go to the council manager form of government, I think very definitely you have to go to a multi-district, at least multi-district. I still have some feeling about the city's form of government being good, that you do have a mayor elected and sitting on the council. And theoretically, anyway, it's not true in Juneau, and it's not true in Washington right now, but if you elect a mayor area-wise, and you elect council, either multi-council or single council district, you'll have the mayor with some power because he should have the same equation of representation on the council as his vote reflects, theoretically. But I just generally stating, whatever form of government you come out with, whether it's council manager, council mayor, council manager mayor, I I have to agree with George that a benevolent dictatorship is the best form of government, but how do you select the
As long as
benevolent?
you can guarantee.
I feel I'm benevolent, but no.
Either you or George, Chuck.
Either one of us.
Gee, I've got words for you.
But I think it's, I think you have to state it very carefully, and I don't think the public is going to look, I really don't think the public's going to look as closely at the mayor, the council manager, and council mayor as the charter commission feels they are. I think the charter is destined to pass if it's at least reasonable.
What makes it reasonable, Chuck?
Well, make it short as possible and understandable as possible.
Sure.
That makes it reasonable.
Sure. I think one
Form of government.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Even though they're gutting my
Why not?
fire section.
Are there other questions of Chuck? Mrs. Selfreg?
No, well, my thoughts are probably very realistic. Because I do believe that the same people that elect the mayor are the same people that elect the assemblyman. I think when we always talk about controls, we never talk about cooperation, working together. And that has disturbed the local government for a long time. And I want to give you a preface on least my view of what the people want. People want efficiency. People want a streamlined government that produces. They want coordination between the elected officials. And I think my response to the people that I know, and there are various types of cultural background and knowledge, they're all they think really look at this moment, these two government as a bunch of prima donnas doing their thing and the company responsive to their needs. Now, with this preface, which says nothing, I wonder how we're going to develop the best government for these people. And I used to be a strong advocate. And let's take off the personality, because see, what we are talking about is only relationship on what we know. You know, if we know a good government, we think they work fine. If we know a bad one, we think it doesn't work. I used to be a very strong advocate of the strong mayor form of government. My experience now makes me think that maybe the manager form of government is better. Especially because my experience is very narrow and is limited to Anchorage. I think we should look, if we deliver something, it has to be defendable. We should look to comparative system more than say what has happened here. So you can go to the public and present it better. Assume we go to the manager form of government and we think it's the best. The public should be informed not because we have had Anchorage with a manager or the borough without a manager. We should look to broader comparative analysis to show that it's the best. Or if the mayor form of government is the best, then there are policies in the mayor form of government you know throughout the country. The mayor can be a dictator, develop a ward system, and it can be re-elected forever. You know, because that is also a very, very dangerous system. And at the same time, other places, it's the most magnificent system. But I think there should be an in-depth evaluation beyond our own experience here to be able to convince the public of one or the other. Because right now the public is split. You know, you find a 50-50 support for, I would say, or vary for each one of those. Because the people living in the city have seen one, the people outside the city have seen the other.
No,
Pardon?
that
Go ahead.
doesn't bear with, you mean on the elected mayor
Yeah.
or
Not-
manager for them?
No, that's the facts. The last poll was much greater.
Last poll was very confusing because you had three alternatives.
Well,
one was strong mayor and weak mayor and the manager.
There-
So lots of people that vote for one or the other really was the most confusing for
Okay, but
really misrepresenting the issue.
Let's go
You
to-
should have had the two alternatives, the three alternatives.
Okay, I agree with that. I didn't do it, but somebody else did
It
that.
did not give you a mandate at all. Yeah.
But previous polls, now unless community attitude has changed,
Well, the community attitude has changed. I run for office for an area where the changeover has been, I think you had an increase of population of about 60% in the last,
Well,
5 years.
Okay.
And these people are new to Alaska, and they're people that want services. The romance of the big, let me do what I want bit is over. The population is increasing only in the urbanized area of Muldoon and Sun Lake, but also toward the hillside. You already start talking to people in Hillside, they say they want schools, they want easy access, they want police protection, they want fire protection. So, you know, we're talking about municipality. It's no longer a rural community. It's a city. And I don't know, I support either one. I found Palestine votes and I found American votes. And
You touched on something while you were talking there about people staying in office forever. Have you any thoughts on limitation of
yes,
terms?
6-year term is maximum for a mayor.
Six-year term?
2 3-year terms?
I feel very strong about it.
2 3-year terms?
2-3 years term. And then if you do that, then I think a strong mayor and form of government would be probably more feasible. There is not the perpetuation of an elected official too many ways.
What about limitation on the elected officials, other than the mayor?
I haven't given much thought as much as the mayor. And I'd like to move to, I think the district that we have now, they're very much in tune, I think, except for some of the boundaries strange. And the re-evaluation of the boundary relationships, relationships, or or actually neighborhood relationship. I think the way it's now, I think it's a very, very excellent way of representation. I think there's only your district which should be realigned.
Mine, Bill.
And maybe, you know, there can be maybe, if you want to tell 4 and 5, that a little large enough to have a broader representation to a neighborhood rather than subdivision type, not just the
Did you have another?
I had something I'd like to pursue on this mayor-manager thing. Lydia, if it, you know, we've got Rowan working for us, doing some research. And, you know, if his research shows that it's maybe 55-45 or 60-40 elected executive, then, you know,
That is a new question.
we sort of got to,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, and you wouldn't find the argument.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I would think the last mandate, I think it's good that you run another survey. I think it's very important because we need that in mandate.
I should have asked that of them.
Yeah, the point is, though, that 60% of the people opted in favor of council manager government in that poll, because there were 2 choices for council manager.
No, we're talking about another additional poll we're having done, Ben.
All right.
And that's why, one of the reasons we had the additional poll done is because we thought the last poll was so confusing.
Now, if we do have a strong manager, a strong elected mayor, however, I feel my experience on the council is very limited, and I've been there just what, 2 months. However, I feel that regardless of the assembly, we have to have a credibility. Either we run at time our own evaluation of a specific issue, which with part-time elected official is almost impossible because we have other jobs. Or we have to rely on what's presented to us. And I'm sure it's correct most of the time, but sometimes we have doubt. So we have to plug in a way that we have to have a staff of some kind. And I really feel that there should be, if there is a strong mayor form of government, it should be then a skeleton or a minimum staff that is allowed to the assembly to be able to question.
Arliss had a question too, and then Chuck had a question.
Mr. Chairman, from those that feel they wish to, as to whether we should get into the whole question of whatever the legislative form is and the school district, or if we should not try and rock the boat. The first charter prior to this one that failed so overwhelmingly, of course, called for a line item veto on the part of the assembly, and this caused all the education groups to come out screaming. The second one pretty much maintained the status quo, and it'd be interesting to get your feeling as to whether we should make a
Arliss,
change.
could I say something parenthetically? The first charter, or the second charter failed only, the first charter failed only slightly worse than the second. The second charter failed almost as badly as the
They
first.
were pretty worse, they're both.
Yeah, so
No, but they were
I
organized
don't think-
opposition, but whether that was a key or not.
Okay.
I can tell you one thing on that, and you can ask back, and then I should fight for the rest of the time. I think a system where you have an elected body that prepares budget and is approved by another elected body without line item veto, without recommendation for development of that budget or how the budget should be implemented, I think is almost, it's ridiculous. Calls for problem in itself. So the system is here and all that can be changed, but I do feel, especially now we're just evaluating the budget for the school district, and I feel that that is the most, it's ridiculous. Regardless how much you cut, you don't know where you're cutting, you don't know what,
Ben, well, Chuck had a,
Yeah, well, I was going to just comment on that, that either you don't look at the budget or you have line item authority.
Either give them the money or sooner percentage.
It's ridiculous.
Power to do something with it.
One or the other.
Yeah, one or the other.
no, Ben had,
It's
Well,
ineffective.
I have two comments on that. I note, Alice, let me read this section again about this school district. The school district here is set up as council manager form of government. They're elected and they have control of the personnel. So, and they also have a tradition of...
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, there's never been any question about that, and I think it's well accepted, and it's been operating that way for many years. The at-large representation doesn't seem to cause anybody any real problem as far as electing school board members is concerned, and as long as it doesn't, that's really the best form of representation if it's acceptable, so you really want to stay with that, I think. The third thing about the question of line item veto, that bothers me because I don't think there's anybody on the assembly that knows anything about school work, and I really don't want to. Now hold up here a minute with the. I think that the assembly as a legislative body is far more expert in the field of taxation and things of that nature as to what the public will accept and what they won't accept in terms of Cadillacs versus Fords in public services and the balancing of public services. Now, the assembly is in a position to say, do we want more open space and bike trails, or do we want a better PTR in the schools or whatever? But I don't think that they're in a position to decide on the various programs, because you've got an elected school district that hears the public all the time, or supposedly they do, and they're supposed to be able to read the desires of the public and to read get the information from their professional education staff. The assembly has no input whatsoever from anybody in the field of education. They don't have any experts telling them the advantages and disadvantages of open classrooms versus anything else. And I really don't think the Assembly's got any damn business trying to decide those questions.
Okay, based on what you said, if there is a school district, a school board, should we then deal only with the educational aspect? They should write curriculum and look at the teachers and teachers' salaries. But I think that at least that budget I looked yesterday, and 50% is administration. It's administration beyond the educational curriculum. The curriculum is only part of it. So if we limit to that point, that is fine. They should be in charge of the curriculum and the education. But when you go into the administration, maintenance, and so on, you have a double expenditure, a double administration. It's very costly and
Okay,
unruly.
so why doesn't the Board of Education, the Board of Education place some controls on the cost of administration in the system? That's what they're there for.
Mr. Parsons?
This is one that I think is a real tough nut to crack. And I don't know from other places if they do exactly what you said here, and that is have a school board and administration do only curricular and things related to that philosophy, and that the other government takes care of all kind of public work aspects of it. That is building to grounds. One of the hearings even suggested that the bus system should be one integrated bus system kind of thing. Because all of these are peripheral things, and sure, they mean other than that, back to a common pool. And I don't know what the experience elsewhere is in this regard. How do we break it off?
There are tremendous advantages to be realized from having a common financial pool. I'll tell you that, splitting up the financial part means that one government has got a surplus while the other one's going out borrowing bond anticipation notes. It costs the taxpayer more money just to screw around with it. I think we ought to try to solve that problem somewhere down the line.
See, one
Common
thing-
treasury?
One thing we talk about a manager that we are afraid not to get rid of, but there's no way we can get rid of a school administrator, a top school administrator, which is no more than a manager.
It says right
They
here,
remain for 20 years.
it's right here in the charter, they can fire the school administrator.
Well, but it hasn't been the history.
In theory, the idea of taking all of the public works aspects and putting them, centralizing them with the assembly may work well, but I think back to the design and operation of buildings, and really a lot of the educational philosophy translates into building design and management of buildings, especially if you're getting into some areas of more innovative teaching. It really, I think, would be a terrible mess to separate the two.
Mary Froney? Are you speaking as assemblyman or assembly person or as a charter commissioner?
I want to bring some comments that I heard from the seminar on Saturday. Lisa persuaded me to go. And the item that interested me most was Dr. Joyner's comments. And he told us that nationwide there is a tendency for larger municipalities to move from council managers to strong vetoing mayor types. He pointed out that council managers work well where the community, the municipality, is fairly near of one mind. But where the municipality has widely separating opinions, that there is some tendency to get a better balance with a strong mayor. And this was one of the reasons that as cities got larger, that there was a tendency nationwide to go to the vetoing executive with the larger cities. He said where the cities have had long histories and seemingly are still fairly stable in a unity of thought in the community, that yes, the manager council works fine. And he pointed out, if I heard him right, he was pointing out that the city part of Anchorage is the more stable part of Anchorage, and that is perhaps maybe the reason, if I understood him, as to why the city part tends to think that the council manager form works well.
Any comment?
He has told us that he would give us his address in printed form to Lisa when she comes to class, and we'll be able to distribute it to the charter.
Mary, if I understand common terminology, when you say larger cities, you mean cities over 500,000, because that's what is generally considered to be
He
the
didn't
so-called larger
specify
city.
where he was breaking it.
Well, perhaps he didn't, but it's normally broken, and they're called, in all discussions of this kind, cities over 500,000, it's true that the majority of those cities are mayor council. They're more politically oriented, and they're more, they're more party type oriented, party politics type oriented. The cities between 100,000 and 500,000 in the United States today, the majority of those cities are now under council manager forms of government, and that form is growing more rapidly in cities of that size range. When you get into cities like San Diego and so forth, although San Diego and Cincinnati are council manager cities, but more cities in that category, above 1 million and above 500,000, are mayor council. That's true enough. The other point that you make about the homogeneity of a city, of a municipality, being more adaptable to the council manager plan, that's true. But on the other hand, it's also true that a homogeneous type community is better governed under any system than one that is divided with various kinds of populations. And then generally what they mean when they talk about a non-homogeneous community, they're talking about racial factions or ethnic factions. And we are a highly homogeneous community here in the Anchorage Bowl. You know, our socioeconomic and our ethnic makeup is all similar. That we have common problems throughout the community. The differences are very minor compared to what they are in many communities. This is a homogeneous community.
In comparison to what there are in many communities, but there still is a fairly wide
What I'm saying is that the
variety
argument,
of thoughts in this community. We don't think as one.
what I'm saying is that the statements that you have made support the council manager concept more than the other one.
I don't think you do.
Are there other questions of Mary as an assemblywoman? Jeff?
Well, I think in listening to all this, the biggest problem is everybody sit along is going to be the form of government. I, like Ben, would accept any form for the sake of unification.
Darn, people.
I hope the public is the same, that's all.
They're out there just waiting.
Yeah. And the district representation, again, I favor the single-member district over the area-wide election. However, there was more blood, sweat, and tears than most of you know went into this compromise. And I think that probably it is the most palatable to the most people at this point, because the people who feel strongly about single-member districts will not accept the area-wide concept, and vice versa. But most everybody, I think, for the sake of getting the charter passed and for the sake of getting things settled, has in their mind accepted the multi-member districts. Now, the lines may well be drawn in a different manner, and that also was the result of compromise. They were changed a little bit to accommodate city and outside of city districts. In other words, we had a lot in the original concept that was presented to the Assembly. There were a lot of dribbling over the city lines so that there were part city, part borough in them. And maybe that could be looked into, and maybe even going back to that original map, some of the original work that we had done on. I don't know that it was all that much better, but that was a compromise for the sake of representation on the Assembly. I think that you will not pass a charter under any circumstance if it doesn't contain the service area concept. I think that, and it sounds to me like most of you have agreed on that fact, and that people will then be allowed to assume the powers. I think this community is different. Ben was talking about the homogeneity of the community, and we are very homogeneous as far as ethnic concerns are, but we are different, and I found this in talking to other municipal people and planners and things. We still have within our midst the people who developed the community. We have the pioneers with us. We don't have the sons and the daughters and the granddaughters. We have the people who went out and cleared the land, and may they have done it for speculation, or maybe they did it because they wanted to go out there and live on a big 160 acres all by themselves. It makes a difference in our community. And we don't have a homogeneous community as far as that is concerned. And I think that's the difference that we have, and why we can't be completely urbanized. And that, I think, is why there is some concern as to the form of government. I favor the strong executive form. And I think that the biggest argument I could offer was exactly what Ben said, is that the school district is the mayor-manager system, or is the council manager system. And I think the whole problem with the school district is that they've been super acceptable of what the manager has given them. I don't think they look at what's said. I think they're brainwashed. I've told some of the individual members this, and I think that the problem is that they have accepted what the administration gave them. They haven't analyzed it because they are part-time people, as the rest of us are. And I think that when you have a mayor-manager or a manager-council system, you really need a full-time executive to be responsive to the people in that legislature. I'm sorry. I think that we have to analyze what goes on, and we don't all have time. We can take time if we're fortunate like me and happen to be just a housewife. And
sensitivity there.
no, it's a joke.
What, being just a housewife? Oh, I see.
I'm just a,
Yeah.
there are no just housewives, they're homemakers.
That makes you
But nevertheless, I feel that we see the strong executive with a veto is really important for checks and balances. I think that the executive must have a strong chief administrative officer. I think that that's important. And that has in many times past, I think, been a problem of our local borough government is that administrative officer hasn't been as strong as he could be, and the mayor's tried perhaps to do too much. But there's one thing nobody's spoken of, and I think we've got to consider very carefully in drawing up this, and that's the fiscal calendar. We have all sorts of problems within our within the school district as compared to the borough's tax year. Now we have this problem facing us on this borough budget or the school board budget tonight. We're funding them for half a year, and if we the impact on this particular budget will not be felt till next year. Even if we reduce the mill levy, there's liable to be we could reduce the mill levy by a mill, and there could still be a bad impact next year because of this half-year funding. That is also true in the Spenard Service District. We're in the same situation of the half-year funding.
Of course, that's also true of the borough budget, but
Yeah,
the borough budget's not that big an impact.
yeah, this is true. But I mean, it's because of the tax year is different from the budget year.
Go back to the form of government. As I said originally, that I like the separation of powers, the legislative and the executive. What Jesse is saying is very important to you as charter commission members. Don't write a charter based on personalities that exist today. And my diplomacy comes out right now. I think we have a borough with a strong mayor form of government, but with a weak mayor. And I think personalities are getting into conflict. The city does work better, but generally, I feel the council mayor form of government will work better for most of the people.
Council mayor.
Mr. Chairman? Strong mayor.
Mr. Fisher?
I'd like to respond to something Jesse said, because it's something that's been bugging me for about 10 years. And that's that lag in the school budget. The Assembly back 10 years ago, literally, attempted to pick up that lag, and we started picking up 5% a year. And sometime after I went off the Assembly, it got lost. And,
Did it?
Yeah.
Got wiped out, yeah.
I didn't think
Picked up
so.
5% last year.
Did you? Okay. Well, anyway, the pickup is not complete. And that's the thing you're concerned with, Jet, and the charter can't really do anything about that. I mean, it's a built-in problem.
We have 50/50 now. We had 45/60.
Right. Okay, well, it's going well. I'd like to bring up another topic that in Jesse's comments sort of jarred me on. And, you know, we're going to have a problem overall as to how many problems we try to solve in the charter. And I'm to the point where I don't want to solve any except unification, but things keep cropping up. And I go back to the message that we sent via Mary about our salary for this commission. And the message we sent was that, well, it's up to you, Assembly, if you want to pay us. And the message came back, but we're not really after salary, we just should not get paid.
You
And
didn't tell me to say that.
No,
You didn't tell me to say that, boy.
we did not wish a salary.
we did not wish a salary, all right.
That's what you told me to say.
That's Franklin County.
That
Well-
other wasn't what you asked me to
Okay,
say, boy.
we did not wish a salary, but it's up to you. Frankly, I think you should have imposed a salary. And because what you mentioned about the part-time people serving on the school board, true, and they don't get paid. If they do, it's $25 a meeting or something. I think that's criminal. I don't know what we can do about it. I don't know if we should do anything about it, but darn it, I think that the people serving on these bodies should be paid and paid well. It's a valuable service. And if it's not a valuable service, then they're underestimating their own qualifications, the people that serve in these capacities, you and I. And it's disturbing. I don't know if we can do anything about it. I'd like to throw it out. Oh, it's possible. We could put something in there that members of legislative bodies, or all legislative bodies, shall be paid commensurate with the normal...
That wouldn't sit well with the public.
No, it wouldn't, but it's possible.
We killed the charter.
Yeah, that's up to the legislature.
Mr. Chairman?
Marvelous.
I agree with her about the charter.
On this question that Jesse raised about the finances, I think it's valid. I would hope that any of the Assembly people sitting here today, if they have any specifics that might, positively help us, if they could just take a minute and jot those down, I'd really appreciate it. I don't think we can rock too many boats, but there are some very specific knowledge that you have that perhaps it doesn't come out in this kind of a discussion, and we'd really like to have that.
Well, I think you ought to sit down and talk to the finance officer.
We are meeting with them on this.
Because I think the transition period is maybe where you're going to have to address this problem.
One comment in regard to specifics, and that is that you're going to have to deal carefully with the transition question. We've all had a good look at what's happening in Eagle River and the difficulty of transitioning to a new government. It's going to be worse in trying to transition from the two governments to a single government. I think you ought to take a look at what they did in Juneau and how well they succeeded. I believe I've heard it said that they didn't give enough time.
Far too short. We did have been in communication with them. And it is an area, we'd hoped there was a group, Ben Morless, working on this particular thing, and unfortunately, that information does not seem to be coming to us. So that's an area where we could sure use some of your thoughts.
Well, I don't know that we could help as much as those people could have gone through it.
Jim?
Jesse brought up the fiscal year aspect. And we talked to the school people the ABJ who said the same thing. Do you have any suggestions? In my hunch, that the one that's least movable is the state fiscal year. And how can we fit in with that, since so much depends upon funding through the state for schools, and to some extent funding back into municipalities? What would be the best?
I'm involved with two governments, with two fiscal years.
Yes.
Local governments. There doesn't really seem to be too much of a problem with the city, which has a calendar fiscal year, because all they have to do is consider that the state subsistence allocations and so forth, the grants and aid and so on, are going to be funded on their year. In some cases, we have to guess as to what's going to happen in the next fiscal year, but in most cases, that doesn't cause too much of a problem. The biggest problem that you get into is locally, where your tax year and your fiscal year are different. That's a worse problem than it is between the fiscal year and the state.
Other questions?
Well, it doesn't solve the pulling and tugging that people who are, for example, the teachers feel that they are caught in the middle, that they get these non-retention notices, and it's strictly a legal protective device of the district that has no alternative in this respect because of the differences in the 2 years.
Carlos?
A couple of questions. I wonder if we could have some comment. We're going to be faced with, in effect, making certain services area-wide. Police, there's been some discussion, and there seems to be a general feeling, and I can't, of course, speak for the commission, that that's one where, as people wish to add it, they should have the opportunity to vote on it. I can't see there should be a lot of problem with getting into, say, making area-wide libraries, because in essence, we have non-area-wide in library within the city, fire, possibly parks, public works, and a number of these things. But how about when we get into such things as the port, the Historical and Fine Arts Museum? There's a couple of things. Is that an area where the people haven't had an opportunity to vote yet? Obviously, it benefits the whole community. Should we be taking some of that to move ahead?
This is a very important, this is the basic crux of the whole thing.
All right.
I think that your government should be allowed to do everything. Your government should be allowed to do everything.
Yeah, but you talked that you could see no problem, Ben, in allowing the public to vote on the extension of power.
That's correct.
Okay, so you say that. Then should we as a charter commission say that the port should be area-wide?
I'm separating the question of powers and services. Services should be extended to service areas as they ask for them, and then services and taxes are tied together. But the government should have the power
Okay.
to do all these
Okay,
things.
all right. Let's say it has the power then. But then you would, let's take the port. Would you then on the port, before extending it to Spenard or to the various service districts, go for a vote of the people?
Get him to find what powers and what
Yeah,
services.
right.
The thing is, to these, I think the port is something different from the service, like the roads and drainage and sewer and water. The port is something, is an asset that the city of Anchorage has, which is certainly state. In fact, from my standpoint, maybe we should go to Port Authority, because it serves the Matsu borough as well as Glen Allen.
Well, not only that, but there's no tax levy connected.
And there's no tax levy.
Okay, so then-
It's just that, oh, it's not.
So,
That's a revenue.
But, I mean, someone has to vote on it. And so you have to define who votes, whether it's the city as it is now, or whether we extend the vote.
Don't you think there should be a division on services? Port, I don't think is a service. It's not direct service to only some specific citizen, like a drainage district or a water and sewer district. Port, is just happened is in the Greater Anchorage area. It wasn't the city, not in the Greater Anchorage area borough, and we are serving the whole state out of this port. Over it was improved and built by the city. I think that automatically, in my standpoint,
All
is
those
something that
utilities.
should become area-wide.
yeah, well, I think that
We've
is.
got about 8 conversations going on here.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I didn't give you any
No,
answer,
I didn't.
because I don't have any. The port and the other utilities all fall in the same category as far as that is concerned. You're going to have to lay down the ground rules as to how the utilities are to be transferred from the ownership of a group to the ownership of the whole. The assets and liabilities will have to be, I guess, dealt with.
Yes, we've heard that. Right, that's fine, but that's something you might want to think about and give some input.
Might be a good idea.
Arliss, could I ask the question more specifically?
No.
Would this, people in the city be particularly uptight about it if we spread along with spreading the port debt area-wide, we spread the revenue from the utilities area-wide? Just, in other words, the whole thing is owned by everybody.
Not so sure we can do the debt that way.
Yeah, we can.
The only reaction to that question is that I think it's something that the city council ought to sit down and deal with. Maybe the charter commission ought to ask the city council for an answer on that. We ought to get into it. With some recommendations from our own people.
Well, I think, we're trying now to get, to find out what financially we're talking about in that regard. Because it's been a long time. We did that study back
Yeah, I think you're
back 6 years ago, but the facts have changed now.
This is a politically dangerous point, because if you get a lot of people uptight about those guys out there trying to rob us, or those
Yeah.
guys in the city
No,
trying to
don't
rob
get
us,
in the back.
the thing will go down. I think that you're right, that thing's got to be dealt with.
Because there is a choice of whether or not to leave it in a service area, but it really isn't a service area because it isn't a service. And I think we'd like to avoid that if we can. Well, we're going to try to get some financial details on it.
We do intend,
I've got questions,
we do intend to meet with the finance director, we do intend to meet with the city council and the school board. And so we appreciate the input here regarding some of the questions we should be asking. We do have some question about it. It is addressed to some extent in Title 29. And that interpretation of that will have to affect what we can do. Are there other questions?
I don't envy you your job, don't
Oh, neat. Mr. Chairman, I do think one thing, though, that really could help us, the people that are represented here, and I wish there could have been more, are really the ones that are the experts in local government as it works now. And I hope that when
Or doesn't work now.
well, or doesn't work, and that's what we're here for. That when the draft comes out at the end of this month, that you'll really take some time to try and find home and help us avoid some of the mistakes. I think that the publicity we've had in the last few days is rather accurate. That people are exemplifying just what you have around the table, are willing to moderate some very strong personal opinions. Ben, you've spent an awful lot of years in the field, and it makes me feel good to hear you say that you'll buy either way. We want to make the best, but it'll help if we get some feedback on those things, and rather than having a political oration at the time that the charter's actually before us, if we can get it beforehand, that's when we need it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I want to reemphasize that because we didn't have it last time, Ben, as you remember. And,
We are meeting with the council.
and frankly, we want the council's endorsement. We want the assembly's endorsement. We want the school board's endorsement.
You need all those things.
Yeah, we're really going to need them. And I mean a strong, definite endorsement. Not some of the things that happened last time. And, we're going to be after that. And we sure want you to have we're not going to ask you to take that responsibility without giving you a hell of a lot of authority to go with it. And, and anytime you see anything wrong with this blasted thing as it comes along, we want to know about it.
What is your schedule? The end of this month, you have a draft, the first draft.
Thomas has one there on April 26th. We hope to have the first draft out. And
I'm going to be in Las Vegas.
there will be another set of hearings on May 11th, 12th, and 13th, I believe it is. 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Going to have a public poll.
With a final draft, the end of May, final printing by the 19th of June. Hopefully we submit it to the Assembly on the 30th of June. And we'll have a month to talk about it, put it out to the public.
Should get paid.
Election on August 12th.
What's your transitional period that you're thinking of if it passes?
Chuck, there's been no determination of a transitional period, and that That, well, Dick is going to be handling the transition committee, is handling the transition committee, and it depends down the road of these 2 or 3 weeks from now to be getting into it more heavily than he is now, because we will have settled some of the, at least temporarily settled some of our basic ideas.
We're asking, if I can,
Harlan?
That's helpful.
Mr. Chairman, one question, if we might direct to the assembly persons here. We do have a very ambitious schedule that's going to put us all under. But in the event that we don't make it, that we see somewhere along the line that we're not going to be able to develop an adequate charter, the reason that we set this is pretty much so that we don't get into this problem of a charter election at the same time people are filing for office for the municipal. That's why you either cut it off very close to this, the 12th of August, or possibly 1 week further. Then your next opportunity, really, so you don't muddy this whole water, would be to go to the regular municipal elections. And we've just had some very preliminary research done that apparently within the province of the local government, you could set off the regular municipal election. Would you like to comment as to how you feel about that? We did this, of course, as a result of this apportionment issue and the
It's all right with me.
so how about it, just as a general philosophy?
You have to run.
You mean as part of the transition?
Well, no, we would say have the election on the, let's just assume we don't make it, we can't make it, and we would come to you and say, hey, can you set off your election of officers at the regular municipal election of October 2nd or whatever it is, allow the charter election to be held, and then either run for the charter or to fill the regular municipal offices at a later date.
A month or 6 weeks
or whatever the time
after
is
the
after
regular
that.
The only problem with it is, and I just raise the question, is that when we did this time, we got abysmal turnouts.
Well, we're concerned also about abysmal turnouts at an August charter election. We're just really, we're quite frightened about the possibilities.
And you would have terrible time if you had one election, another election, another election. Then when you run for your charter, people, nobody knows control. I think it would be very bad.
Of course, it's hard to predict what the public will do and how many of them will come out, but I think this is such an important election, the charter, that you're really going to get them out. And all kidding aside, it would be better to separate the two, to have a charter commission first, set the municipal election aside for a month or two. And I think then if the charter passes, then you have a whole new ball game, and I think you're going to get the public input. I really do.
Jesse?
I think we ran in, of course, we had state elections
5 elections in a row.
last year, and I think that we're in a better position to do it this year. And I think that it could be done, and I think it should be done. Because I think that if the charter were to pass, we shouldn't wait a year to implement it.
No, yeah. I think the secret of this charter this time is to get it before the public as rapidly as possible while the effort is still going. Everybody's talking charter, just charter. The longer, the worse,
Jim, did you have?
It was with regard to something a little earlier. I too was surprised at the number of people who said, give us the uniform government, it doesn't matter. But if there is any trend, it would appear that people from the city are lining up for council, mayor kind of thing.
Council manager.
And suppose we come up with the other kind of government,
Brad?
We still don't have enough of a trend, though.
No,
Because
no.
most of the people we're listening to, and believe me, the turnout has been rather disappointing at these public hearings, of people from interest groups. So we really don't have a feel of what
I'm saying the people that have come out from the city, but whether they be department heads or fire chief or what have you, they espouse the current norm of city government. Now, I hear some comments that the other is is a preferable kind of government too. That is a strong mayor and an adversary kind of mayor to the assembly. And I'm puzzled as to how we can perhaps get the two camps together if we decide on a strong mayor assembly kind of thing.
I don't think, personally, I don't think that they are that dedicated to the positions.
Okay.
They've been indicated, well, it'll work either way, but this is my preference.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the feeling all the way, like Bennett said. He said, this is my preference. He said,
This is what I was thinking. We always seem to forget that we have an intelligent public over there, you know. And this is what I feel is very important, regardless what you decide, that you can come back with some reason why, move it out of the personality thing. You see, the people that have seen a form function, the other outside and other form function. We have to move it out of this thing. And then I think you have an intelligent public that respond to some education, which we do so little, and say why we have done this and justify it. But not just based on past local experience, because that polarize, because people then take side of the issue. I think you have to become more technical.
Brett?
I think the public's going to pretty well leave it up to the commission. They're looking at the commission and what they're going to recommend or suggest as a charter. And I think it's going to be up like anything else. If you can sell it well, if we as a commission can get up and really sell this thing, it'll go. But if we can't sell it, it's dead. Simple as that.
That's an important point. But this time, let's try to change something that we didn't do before. Let's see if we can't get the assembly and the council to also try to solve it.
Right. Selling it.
My exact.
Selling it. Endorsing it and selling it.
And be all together.
I think this is very important, Ben. If we can get council support, assembly support.
When the average citizen says, hell, my own leadership can't make
Right. This is a plus that we've got to get.
Well, Mr. Chairman, then, in order to help us do that, we need to have more kind of things like we've done with you today to keep you up with
Yeah,
what
and
we're
bring
doing.
sandwiches the next time.
And bring sandwiches, because you don't pay us, you don't know money.
Well, I assure you that although I favor the council mayor form of government, that if you come out with a council management form of government, I'm going to be just as happy pushing this unification.
I can remember the first night that Chuck Evans came on there, on the planning
He
commission.
vetoed 2 of my votes.
Yeah, and it was just absolutely an incredible thing how quickly you changed from being an anti-unification to a pro-unification.
Right.
All I can say is what was wrong with you before.
I didn't know how the borough operated.
You don't know?
Yeah, I sure do.
Just keep smart.
Are there other questions? Or is there any other input? We want anything you can give us, and we appreciate anything you write. If you have a feeling that you haven't said what you wanted to say exactly, we would appreciate putting it in writing. We'll see that all the charter commission members get. We'll appreciate that.
I would like,
No.
this meeting I came to it very, very cold and not knowing what was going to be asked. And I would have liked to have had some documents to look at, a little bit of what transpired, a little more information so I can address myself to specifics. We've spoken a little generally, and we do this again. Give us some areas you want us to talk about.
You're holding a rump session down there.
And just give us some areas you'd like to discuss, the things that you think you're going to have problems with.
Sherry?
Perhaps we could provide the Assembly with a copy of our schedule of regular commission meetings at which we'll consider each specific article. And in addition to holding more sessions like this, you may wish to come and give testimony to particular aspects.
Marvelous.
Mr. Chairman, I think one thing that we didn't point out, that we are using the last basic draft of the charter only as a working tool, because it covers the various areas that we must cover, and it's really, it's not gospel, and many things will be changed but it does give us a basis of framework, and I think we have to be a little
Speak
careful.
for yourself, Arliss.
Okay, yeah. So it might not hurt to get them copies of that charter if,
It also might be a good idea if you, in your deliberations, if you identify the gut issues that have to be decided.
we have.
And then you might just list those issues and ask for individual comments.
The one, we've circled various ones on there.
Well, I
listed
think
them on the other page.
it's been spoken to, and I suspect that you have it all taken care of, but I just want to reiterate that I do feel that you have to have some provision for amending the charter, and so that people know that if this doesn't work out, that we're not stuck with it forever. Because I think that is something they're a little concerned about, that the die is cast sort of thing.
And that should be worked into your publicity
Right.
program too.
Yeah, that's right.
Mary Connie?
I have a comment that I want to make to the assembly members, if you'll excuse me a second.
Okay, save it till tonight.
No, you can't. Mr. Levac is over at the building, and he would be happy to tell you what the information is that he has come up with in relation to the school budget. I would like to tell you with one little tidbit that I have come up with, working over the weekend, and that is that in the school budget as it's presented to us, 46% of the in-school units budget is what you would speak of as overhead. That is of administration, of secretarial, of supplies, materials, textbooks, utilities, and such like. It does look like the proposed budget is, as Mitford says, something like 54% overhead outside of the school units, which means that 54% is the top administration. It is the out-of-house maintenance in units. It is the transportation and some of those. I know that Norm has been working on going over the last budgets for 5 or 10 years back to show the amount that has been allocated by budget and the amount each year that has actually been spent. And if I understand it right, he was still working on that. That was the reason I was late getting here, because I had thought I could bring the information over here for you. But it looks like every year there have been millions left over that had not actually been spent, though they've been budgeted. If you don't mind, I think it would be helpful for us if we went over and saw just what he has come up with after this meeting is complete.
Well, I hope he has some of that there tonight.
He will have it there tonight as well, but it may be that we want to ask for some additional questions as we look at it now. Is the point.
Barry?
I just wanted to thank the assembly members for coming. I know that work sessions sometimes don't have a very big turnout, and I'm pleased to see the number of assembly persons here today.
Yeah, forum, that's pretty good.
Next time I know what we're going to talk about it, I'm wondering if this comes up.
Well, no, that's great. We hope there's
We appreciate your being here very much, and we want to thank each of you for being here. And again, repeat that if there are any input that you feel ought to be called to our attention, do it in writing. We appreciate it. We will send you copies of our work schedule so you know when we'll be meeting. We have an office at 529 High Street, formerly Dr. Valley's office.
The Charter Production Subcommittee will meet here right now. Yeah, but Dick is going to have to run off, so I'd like to at least set our next meeting. Paul Dick is still on meeting very
Yeah, I found out about this meeting today inadvertently, and I see we have one tomorrow as well. Remember, I wasn't there yesterday?
Oh, this was an off.
This was set up.
Now, you were very interested.
Yesterday.
It's announced Thursday.
Well, anyway, all right, I didn't know about a charter subcommittee. Well, I mean,
We
subcommittee.
discussed it in your, at the end of the meeting, and I asked you.
That's right, we did, Dick.
I don't remember. You weren't listening. Sorry.
Okay.
I mean another day.
Can you stay
Can you
long
stay a
enough
minute
to
to
get
get
the next one?
a meeting?
Sure.
The work session is adjourned and the holiday meetings.
Elephant.
Bye, John.
We have tonight, tomorrow night, tomorrow noon possibilities. We have a meeting tomorrow with the school board at noon, Zach We could have a charter production subcommittee following that. We could have one tonight, we could have one tomorrow night. We need to have those for the agenda.
You can do that.
Can't come tomorrow night. How about tonight? How about tomorrow noon?
Either an hour clear.
Can you take care of it?
Why don't you slide down here so we can
Let's get a meeting set. Thanks, Jesse.
keep your meeting at noon. Where is the meeting? Noon, Wednesday, city council here.
It's 12. I thought today was 11:30. That's why I came 11:30.
I don't understand what they were very good. Like Jack Beavis is school board, and I wanted to.
Tomorrow is here, school board.
So that here.
Sometimes
Okay, what's your,
Hey, let's have one person announce these damn meetings. We've got so many. Okay, announce meetings.
Okay, new meetings, Tuesday and Wednesday here. The Tuesday one is with the school board,
12 to 1:30?
12 to 1:30. The Wednesday one is with the city council, 12 to 1:30. Here? Here. As I understand it, Frank said it was.
I hope that all the calls are made to these people.
12 to 1:30 on Wednesday also.
Right.
Okay.
And then we have our other regular.
Now, let's set a charter production meeting.
Okay, charter production subcommittee meeting tonight.
Where?
We need it in our office. What time? 7:30?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Are we talking about,
No, I've got a, tomorrow night. I got a meeting tonight.
Lisa, you camp tomorrow night?
Well, no, ma'am. Let's make it tomorrow then, because we've got to catch
Well,
Dick
Dick,
somewhere.
you're leaving town, right?
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning for 10 days. So let's set it so that you can be there because I like your input.
Okay, fine. I'll be there tomorrow night. Where?
In our office.
Okay, I'll be there.
That's Wednesday night,
Tuesday
Tuesday
night. Tuesday night.
April Fool.
Our office,
Give them the wrong
7:30.
day.
Now, what was the Harris meeting you were talking about, Sharon? You said something about Monday.
Okay, Frank called me on Friday and he said that Frank Harris could not come to our work session on Saturday.
Frank Harris.
No, not Jack.
Oh,
That's the wrong Harris.
yeah.
Jack Harris, utilities. Jack.
So the Saturday meeting is canceled, is that?
No, the Saturday meeting is not canceled because we have 4 other people coming.
Okay.
We need to find a place for them.
What?
Okay, I didn't do it because I thought it was canceled.
Okay.
Can we meet at the planning department library? Or is
We could
that
have
four
the assembly hall on Saturday.
Pardon?
We could have the assembly hall on Saturday.
Or here, I don't see anything wrong
Here,
with here.
probably.
Why don't we
Probably
check
could
on
have
here?
city council and the assembly library is no bigger than our office.
I like this room, I think it's neutral territory, we can have it here fun.
Here.
Jack Harris suggested a Monday night meeting on the 7th. I suggest a noon meeting sometime that week.
We already have this room booked for that noon if you want it here.
7?
Noon on the 7th. Okay, I would, if you could check with Jack and see
Well, we
if...
better have more than just to meet with one guy, I think.
And he's going to bring some other people, and it's about the utilities.
Whiteford will be there, and Spencer, and Harris.
Where?
Now, that's the next question.
Here.
Let's make it here at noon, and I'll
On Monday the 7th.
call you if there's any change.
Okay, that's Whiteford, Harris, and Spencer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I almost think that with our budget or with the public look askance, if we, if people wanted to eat today, a lot of people are just not going to, like school board and council, they're not going to sack lunch if they are none. And I really think that we ought to be able to pull something out of our budget to do some sandwiches and things for people who come.
That wouldn't be too bad.
Hamburgers.
No.
It's really not that difficult to set up a sandwich buffet if I knew I have to do it, so that
I really think our budget could afford that, and I don't think anyone would object to that.
I don't think so. I mean, my personal opinion is that we notify them that it's a sack lunch. We're going to be equally divided on the issue. Some people, like Joe Graham, who didn't come today anyway, are going to feel that we're misspending public funds. And is it that difficult for people to stop by and pick up a sandwich?
Knowing the administrators and councilmen, the things that they do, yes, it is absolutely that difficult. You've seen what happened here today. You were running out to this candy machine and getting this crap, absolute crap, and it's all we have available to us. And it does not expedite what we're after in any sense of the word.
Peanut butter sandwiches.
With pickle.
Can we, I got it. A Wednesday is,
Well, let's explore
noon
that.
is 12 to 1:30. Is there any Wednesday night, Sharon?
Yes, 7:30 here.
Your regular meeting.
It's on there already.
It's already on there, yeah. Okay, that's the regular meeting. Then on Thursday is the regular meeting, 7:30, and Friday's, she called 12 o'clock, we're at.
At the council chambers, all the Friday noon meetings at the city council.
People don't know enough about unification and the like.
12 to noon on Friday, and Saturday is the big thing. What time is the Saturday meeting going to
9
start?
o'clock? 9
Not
o'clock?
returning it.
Yeah, and that's going to be some other areas that get started here.
Eddie's going to try and get, you know where it is?
9 till noon here.
Right.
Then I'm out of town until the following Thursday. So
I realize, Brian, the city council meeting is set up definitely for Wednesday.
Yes, I talked to, George Sullivan, and he said, okay, I told him that was the only day left open
I don't know how to
before we started. So it was set.
Okay, good.
Damn it, I'm
Frank, let's call it, this show's available on the 7th, April 7th.
April the 7th?
Yeah.
At noon?
One time.
Well, what,
Wait a minute. Well, we used to do it. You already have Whiteford booked for noon.
That's
We
right.
have Whiteford and Paris and utilities people.
Spencer,
On the 7th.
on the 7th.
And Vic Fisher is the fellow from Fairbanks?
He's from the university.
What's Dick gonna come for?
Whitefoot said that this guy's a real expert on matters of municipalities and things of that sort. And
He was on the
He really is.
convention.
You have a video of him.
And he insisted that he would go and talk to us. So the fellow that was willing to do it, he wanted to come down and talk to us if we set a date.
Why don't we make it sometime a little farther along in that week?
Vic's been teaching the Thursday course.
Or the next week. Is he going to give us input that we're going to need before writing our first draft, or will his input be as valuable
He's going to give you a series of opinions of various types of things that go in a charter and what they mean. He's not going to give you any specifics from what I understand.
How about on the 8th, we have this room on the 8th at noon, if you feel
Well, I
like.
think he only comes down, I think he's teaching down at this college, and he only comes down here on Mondays and Thursdays.
You know, frankly, I think, is there a big reason why we couldn't,
We
you
can
know,
move Wyford and Harris.
well, no, but why not have Vic just come on Thursday during part of our meeting and take half an hour or so on a Thursday night meeting? See, Jane and Vic is the one that, I think whenever we can, we should try and work it into a regular meetings, because we're really getting, you know, I can't give my whole life as much as I love all of you to the Charter Commission. Well, it's been going on for so long.
That's right. And I hear people leaving town, they're going for 10 days,
Yeah,
you have to leave.
Jane has her problems, if you'll remember, about coming because of this course. So it's very possible Vic could come. Maybe we'd have to set it half an hour earlier or something, but we don't need a full meeting with Vic. If we set a meeting earlier,
Otherwise, look at the schedule.
That's all I need to do right
I won't be here Thursday either.
we better do dishes. It's every day this week.
I have to take care of the concert Thursday night. I'm in charge of the house that way. That is a regular ongoing duty.
What's tonight?
This is a regular.
It's concert association. I am the house manager.
What's tonight?
You're going to have to tell them to knock this off.
Okay, are we ready to be a charter production committee now? Yes, I think it's probably time for those who are going to be charter production people to start productioning. And do you ever feel like you've been run off? We would
I
welcome
was just going to
anyone who wishes to stay, please stay.
We got the message.
Which items you going to work on today, Sherry? I need to be there.
But those meetings that you're having are charter production that are on this list that are
Right.
not meetings, right?
Right.
Like,
These are regular commission meetings.
Longer than I have today, and appreciate your being here. Basically, the layout format, we'd like to have this be an informal discussion. And I think Sherry Holmes, the chairman of our Charter Production Committee, made out a schedule of things to do. And one of the things to do is talk about, of course, education. That's basically Article 7 in the last year or 1971 charter. We're using that as a base from which to develop what we're going to do here, not as a job for anything, but as a base, which will cover most everything that we might have to address ourselves. And it has a couple related articles, but basically we would like any input from you folks that would be express what you feel about how it should be handled in a charter, or even if we should even mention education. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be beneficial to me. None of us were on the school board at the time, the last election.
Okay.
And I was, of course, in Juneau at the time and followed it only through the newspaper, having been a long supporter of the concept. But I'd like to ask either Joe or Cliff to recall as best they can the nature of the apparent opposition that the school district had to the wording or the language of the charter as was written in 1971. With that, understanding, and if those areas are not at this point critical dimension that they were then, and then maybe we got one stumbling block behind us. So why don't you, Joe, have you got either your notes or does your memory serve you that?
Dick Fisher was on there too. He might help me.
You were chairman.
I recall, Frank, that
I believe it was provision for designated seats by areas. I think the board at that time was opposed to that.
It read this way: the system of public schools for the municipality shall be operated by a school board of 7 members elected at large. The seats designated as A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
Was that the last one, Frank?
That was the last one. That's the 1971 charter. That's section 701.
Do you remember any more on that?
I think it started out the other way, Frank. It started by sections that were applied.
Change maybe to that.
That's good.
Well, if I recall correctly, of course, there's 2 schools of thought on that. Some of us in the past, I won't say some of us, some of the members previously on the school board had felt that this might be a beneficial way to so-called to elect the short ballot concept. But then again, there's others who feel perhaps that it's not the best way to go. And there's limitations or pitfalls with either way as far as designated seats. But I don't know, as I recall, I think it was, well, Sue Green had an idea that was a good way to go in order to eliminate short ballot. Yeah. But I don't know whether with this board that's as significant an issue or not. We haven't discussed it since the time it was thought about after the last election. Lisa Barker?
I was going to ask at the public hearings that was brought up that with the designated seats that this got rid of a lot of the popularity contest, and when somebody decided they were going to run, they could go in and say, I want to challenge this person who holds seat A right now, and that, they could run against record that way. And the election will still be larger just by designated seat.
If it's not geographically by designated area, it's by EDC letter designation. Generally speaking, you'd end up with a last-minute 11th hour filing, and you'd pick the guy you thought was the weakest seat, and you'd go after that one. That's the way I would think. And then probably everybody load up on one seat.
One other opposition, Mr. Reed, in May of '71, my rough notes here, there was line item veto by the Assembly, and that was the school board took strong official resistance to that particular one. I do recall.
Was there others, Joe, do you recall specifically?
Well, not just
Designated seat and line item veto.
The line item veto was taken out.
Taken out.
in the second one.
Yeah.
The line item veto is not in it. Why don't I just quickly read over its very short article. I'll read the rest of the section. 702, term, membership qualifications and vacancies. A, each member of the school board shall serve a 3-year term of office. To be eligible for nomination for the office of school board and member, and to serve in that capacity, a person shall have the qualifications of a municipal voter under section 503. 2 seats shall be filled at each general election, except that 3 such seats shall be filled at the 1974 general election and each general election every 2 years thereafter. B, vacancies in the office of school board member shall be determined as provided by ordinance. C, a member of the school board forfeits his office as provided for assemblyman in section 204B. The prohibition of section 207A applies to school board members. All members of the school board shall be conducted, all meetings of the school board shall be conducted as provided for the meetings of the assembly in section 205B of this charter. Section 704, powers of the school board. The school board shall, insofar as consistent with municipal law, have powers and duties provided by state law, including but not limited to the following: formulation of policy for the operation of schools, appointment of personnel, including the superintendent, and their suspension or removal for cause and in the manner provided by law and consistent with any collective bargaining agreements in force. 3, function as a board of appeals for personnel appealing decisions of the school administration. Section 705, budget. The superintendent of schools shall submit a proposed annual budget to the board at such time as the board may direct. This proposed school budget shall be public record, available from time to time, from the time of its submission to the board for public inspection and distribution at a reasonable price. The board shall hold public hearings on the budget before approval and submission to the mayor for review prior to referral to the assembly. This submission by the board shall be at least 120 days before the end of the current fiscal year and shall be accompanied by a 6-year program for capital improvements and fiscal policies. Section 706, joint conferences of Assembly and School Board. The Assembly and School Board shall meet jointly at least twice each year in public session to discuss matters of mutual interest. That covers it, except for the deferred sections, 204B, 207A, and 205B.
Mr. Reed, pardon me for being late, but what is the document that you're reading?
This is the 1971 charter, which we are using as a guide and as a point of departure for building this charter.
What is the ramification? I have two questions. Ramifications when some of those things have not been met, and also what was the rationale for ever doing away with the independent school district as it existed prior to this charter?
Well, this charter is not in effect. The independent school district was eliminated back in 1964 by the borough law, the mandatory borough law. That is a state law and required that the school district become coterminous with the borough. And that transition took place in 1964. And this charter, this was a charter, second charter attempt. One was 69, this was 70, this was 71 charter attempt at unification.
There are several ramifications of this charter, and I assume that this is the charter under which we're operating now, but several of those things have not come about.
This is not, we're not operating, this charter was defeated, and the one previous to it. We're operating presently under state law, basically.
Frank, there's 805 on assembly action on the budget. Did you still follow the 71 version?
Joe, we're not, we're using, as I say,
as a
we're
guide.
using the guideline. We have not gotten into the finance section.
Just a small point, but the point is that in that particular one, on 805, that we're reading the same one, it made provisions for the Assembly shall approve the budget as amended and appropriate the funds not later than 30 days prior to the end of the fiscal year. The fiscal year, is this July 1, June 30?
Yes.
And if the approval was that late, wouldn't you see problems, board?
That's the state law.
No later than.
Yeah, there's a difference between when they have to tell the school district the amount of money they have
Rather
and
than.
when they appropriate, which is actually the option to know whether ordinance itself.
It says this one says shall approve the budget not later than 30 days. Now, if the budget wasn't approved until June 1, you'd be in problems, be big problems. If the appropriation, that would be an entirely different thing. In other words, they can make the mill appropriation, that isn't as important to the school district, but for the operation of the school district, we need to know earlier what the total amount allocated is so we can operate.
No, that's what that says, Joe. That means total amount.
It doesn't say that.
Well, but it does mean that
The
because...
Assembly shall approve the budget.
Right, in total. And then it goes...
Yeah, but 30 days isn't soon enough, Dick, before the end of the fiscal year.
That's the assembly and school district budget. That's the total budget.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of cleaning it up. The district school district would need to know ahead of that what the total budget allocation is.
Which section is it?
805.
You're operating on two different budget years. The school district is functioning on,
Unfortunately, you didn't bring additional copy.
July 1 year. I believe, if I'm correct, the borough is functioning and the city is functioning on the calendar year.
No.
No?
We really need lots of
There was
copies.
a change, a movement.
Well, you come down to...
Collecting taxes for the borough on a calendar year, but the borough
borough administration is on, the borough is operating on a fiscal district, same as the school district.
Mr. Chairman,
Mary Frawley.
Joe, wouldn't the idea that you would like in there that within 30 days of whenever the school board submits the budget, that it would have to be approved like that, and not designate just when it has to be submitted necessarily? Is that the sort of
Well, I think it should all be
flexibility you're looking for?
a package, just so that the submission, the action, and the finalization should be at an appropriate time in the calendar year so that it could operate.
Mr. Dillon? Joe, we had, I recall the specifics of this, but we had some substantial problems with timing in the making of this budget, this charter the last time. And I recall we dealt with that, and we simply didn't have any choice for some reason or other. Maybe Sheila can tell me more. It seems to me that because of the timing prior in other portions of the document, and because of other timing, this had to be just about the latest date. Although we could sure look at that.
Doesn't this all back up from the state, and then we back up accordingly to give us time so that each can operate in his own area? And of course, that pushes us up to where we are, and I don't know what it does to borough.
Mr. Chairman, one of our problems, of course, has occurred again this year. If there were some means whereby we had a finite figure, quite frankly, early in the year, so we knew what we were dealing with, of course, this would be great. Unfortunately, we can't get there because now we're under, as long as the state foundation support continues, we got to wait till the legislature gets out of session, and you never know when that's going to be. But that's the other key factor to the funding of the budget. And my point is, I don't know, and we talked about it in general. We talked about it when we had our meeting at the Borough Assembly a week ago Saturday, and if there were some way, and I don't know, I haven't got the answer, to determine a fixed figure, what we could anticipate in the formulation of a budget, I'm sure we could do a much better job.
That's the reason I was asking Joe if it wouldn't be desirable to leave the fixed figure of the local government input into the school district should be decided 30 days after the school board proposes it.
No later than.
No later than 30 days after the school board proposes it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's some problems with that, though, Mary. If it's proposed too early, I don't think it can be meshed with the other budget at all. It just, how much time is necessary there? Let's go at it that way.
Well, let's go back to the statutes. The statutes provide that notification, we have to make certain notifications by March 15. So we utilize that as a personnel.
And your tenure or your
Correct. And that is, of course, 2/3 of our budget. So I think this is a basis partly for why we feel it's necessary to have a timely earlier so we can plan. We realize that the state will never act until the end of the legislative session, but it's impossible to predict or handle that portion. We can't do anything here about that, but we can do on this portion.
I don't know, I fully understood what you said. Your contract, employee contracts, you've got to enter into those by March 15th.
Or else they continue if you don't, by notification, correct. So this is
Yeah,
why
let me ask something one more day, Joe. The statutes provide for a continuing contract law, or continuing contract provisions for teachers, i.e. if they're not notified on before March 15th.
They have a contract
for the next job or contract.
So this would be the non-retention notices that we've heard about from some of the teachers.
That called for the necessity of that move.
You can't have fiscal responsibility if you allow March the 15th to elapse. And by not taking action, then you have automatically put the district into a contract that you have no fiscal responsibility for. And even though we are unpopular by writing the Dear John letters, at least we have tried to meet our fiscal responsibility. Well, otherwise, there's no indication that it will. No.
Can I ask something? Does that put you at a disadvantage? insofar as having to fix that amount on that date, not having total budget approved until later?
It would be far nicer if we knew in January what our total operational budget was going to be for the next year. I think everything's about 6 or 8 months behind. It's out of kilter. You start your planning in September and October and November for that following year, and so the plans go too far along with your own staff. And then in the middle of the planning, or toward the 2/3 of the end of the year, the borough takes a whack, and the state can take a whack. In the meantime, expectations have been gone up too far. If the guidelines could be established earlier, I think guidance could enter into it, and you could do a more orderly planning process. It's just out of kilter. Creates a chaotic condition.
Mr. Chairman, Joe, when you talk about guidelines, we're faced with what we can put in the charter. What can be done in the